One of the objections that I hear to routine over and over is, I don't want to have a routine because it feels too restrictive. Now, I would argue that routine is the opposite. Routine gives me freedom because routine frees up time in my crazy busy life as a mum of 4 children who works full time to do the things not just that I have to do, but that I actually want to do. Routine is that gift that keeps on giving. The more we lean into it, the easier things become. Hi, I am Ree. I do have 4 children, all of which have autism, so routine suits them, it keeps them happy. And as someone that was diagnosed with ADHD very recently at age 40, it turns out that routine suits me too, because it helps me to automate things that would otherwise take up brain power in my already spaghetti jumbled brain. So then ultimately the question is, how do you start? Where do you begin if you want to create a routine that works for you to free up time as a busy mum? Well, that's what we're going to talk about in today's video. The first step is going to be super duper easy. We're not going to change anything at all. In fact, we're just going to observe stuff. So we can all do that, right? We can just look at what we're already doing, and we're going to figure out from there what's working and what's kind of not working for us. So we're not trying to alter anything. We're just taking a look. For 1 week, this is what I want you to do. I just want you to take note of everything we're doing during the day. I want you to take note in a few areas. First of all, timings of things. Everything from what time are you getting up? What time are you getting everyone dressed? How long is that taking? What time's everyone having breakfast? What time are you leaving for school? Are you running late? Are you on time? How long does your school run take? Is it taking longer because you're hitting traffic and that's because you're running late? Would it take less time if you left earlier? How long are you spending preparing dinner, commuting to work, working, doing household chores, doing mealtime, doing bedtime, all of it. So I want you just to observe. And then the other kind of area that I want you to look at is your to-do list. So everything on your to-do list, how much of it you're getting done, and how much stuff you're getting done that was not on your to-do list. Because if you're anything like me, and you're guilty of this, sometimes we end up getting some little side quests done that were not actually things on our to-do list, things that we ended up doing because we were procrastinating things on our to-do list. If we're honest. Just me? No, I reckon some of you do that too. Anyway, during this week, we're literally just going to figure out where are we wasting time, where are things taking kind of longer than they should. For example, how much time are you spending in the morning looking for things that are lost, you know, dealing with your children going, Mummy, I haven't got this, I haven't got my jumper for school, all this stuff. These are the things that I ended up observing, and these are the things I ended up troubleshooting. Almost everything that I do within my family life now, from a routine perspective at least, is a reaction to a problem that we needed to kind of troubleshoot. Things like in the mornings, spending a lot of time chasing around looking for things that were lost, things that my children could not find that they needed for school. So we ended up putting systems and routines in place to sort those things out. And that's what we're going to go through together. So we'll get that. But first of all, first step, just observe it. And then once we've observed it, we're going to look at our goals. We're going to look at what we actually want from our lives, our days, our weeks, how we want to feel, and perhaps maybe the easiest place to start is how we don't want to feel. If we make a list of things we do not want to do, we do not want to feel, then we can make a flipped over version of that list, the mirror version of that list, which will give us what we do actually want. So, for example, I don't want to be running around looking for lost things in the morning. I don't want to be dealing with children that are upset because they can't find things. So what can we do to sort those things out? And what is the opposite of that? So I do want to feel organized and like everything has its place and we know where things are in the mornings so that we can feel calm, so that we can have spare time around us. I don't want to feel like I'm running late. So I do want to feel like I've got ample time to get things done. And when we know how we don't want to feel, and therefore we know how we do want to feel, we know which areas of our lives, together with that list that we made of the things that we're getting done, the things we're not getting done, and the areas in our lives that need a little bit of tidying up in our new routines, we know where we need to start focusing. Now, if you've got a copy of my organised year planner, and if you don't have a copy of it yet, I'll leave a link to my planner store down below. You can grab it in a printed or a digital version that you can print out immediately and work through. But there are pages in here that you can go through every month, looking at what has gone well in the month, how well each area of your life is going, which areas perhaps need a little bit of work, which need a bit more attention and TLC. And then in each area of your life, physical health, mental health, self-care, fun and recreation, fitness, career and education, physical environment, friendships, family, relationships, personal development, and spirituality, you can see which of those areas you're like, yeah, okay, that's fine, and which areas are like, no, we're going to need to put some routines and supports and some systems here in place to help me out. There's also a section to set specific goals, and really this just helps to give you clarity. Setting up a new routine can feel really, really daunting, and we're going to kind of do it piece by piece. The routine that I currently have is something I've been tweaking and developing for years. And I'm not saying it's going to take you years, because I'm going to help you by giving you the shortcuts. But ultimately, I think it's really important to give ourselves a little bit of grace and avoid the overwhelm. If you think, wow, I've got to change my whole life, my whole routine right now, and I've got to change all of it, and it's all got to be done today, we're going to feel so overwhelmed that we're just going to back right up and end up stepping away from this entire let's improve my routine project and not doing anything at all. So we're better off just focusing on the most troublesome areas, just the areas that annoy you the most. Take that list of stuff. Where are you finding the pain points in your day? Which bits are irritating you the most? Is it the morning? Is it your morning routine that you want to attend to first? Is it the evening with homework struggles? Is it physically getting out the door in the morning? Is it bedtime routine? So prioritize the areas that we're going to tweak first, then we'll work on that. We can add on and build a routine once we've got each little micro area sorted. So think about this routine we're building as a gift you're giving to future you. How do you want to feel? And which support can we put in to kind of automate these troubled areas? And we're going to pull all this together in a family calendar. Now, if you've watched my videos before, you'll know I plan in 3 distinct places. The kind of overarching place that I plan is on a family digital calendar. Now, personally, we are an Apple family, so I use the native Apple calendars. I have separate calendars for different areas of my life. So I have one called Re that's just literally my stuff. I have one for work. That's how I organize my day and my work tasks and meetings and things like that. And probably my largest and most crucial calendar in the whole system for me as a mum of 4 is my family calendar. On my family calendar goes everything that all of the rest of the family need to know so that we can coordinate together. Every member of the family has access to this and can see what is going on. So on here is anything that could affect us all as a group. So onto this calendar goes everything that is fixed that everyone in the family needs to know about. These are things that can't be moved. These are things that happen every day or every week or whatever it might be. So the times that the children have to be in school for registration, those things can't be moved around. They're on the calendar. They've got to happen, 5 days a week. The time the children have to be picked up from school, any extracurricular activities that are recurring go on the calendar. Swimming lessons, dancing lessons, karate lessons, all that kind of stuff. It's all on the calendar. And then, of course, you've got the sort of more haphazard and one-off things like birthday parties, school events like sports days, those kind of things. As soon as I get notifications of those from the school, straight away I put them onto the calendar and I leave those emails unread until I've done that, because otherwise, quite frankly, they get forgotten about. And if I don't do things straight away, then they just float away from my brain and don't ever get done. So I leave those emails unread and then I mark them as read as soon as I've moved those events to the calendar. And we get updates from our school every week, but maybe you'll get yours daily, monthly, whatever it is. But as soon as you get those updates from school, get them all on your shared calendar so everyone knows what's going on. Dentist appointments. Our dentist books things 6 months, a year, even in advance. I don't know what I'm doing in a year's time, but I put it on the calendar so as the time comes closer, at least I can see that's coming up. That provides the basic framework of everything we have to do. And then as we build in the other elements of our routine, they'll all get added onto this digital calendar too. And when you look at your own calendar, your family calendar, next to, say, your work one, you don't need quite as many calendars as I have if you don't want to, but you have a main family one. I'd suggest at least having one that's just for you, for stuff that the rest of your family doesn't necessarily need to know about. Like, my family doesn't need to know if I'm filming a video first or editing a video first or whatever else I have to do while they're in school. They don't need to know about that. They don't need notifications clogging up their calendar for that. So I definitely recommend just having at least one for you, one for your family, so you can plot out everything you need to do. And then if you've seen my weekend reset videos here on YouTube, then you probably will have seen me transfer everything from the digital calendar onto my paper planner once a week. This is my Organised Life and Gratitude Planner, which is the one I use day to day, just so that I can kind of show you the difference. My Organised Year Planner is how I kind of plot out my month, look ahead, look back at what's happened in the previous month, look ahead at my goals for the month upcoming, but it's more of an overview. My Organised Life and Gratitude Planner, well, I designed it, turns out, for my ADHD brain. I didn't know I had ADHD when I designed this, but ultimately it has a week at a glance, which is where I take everything from the digital calendar, which I still glance at through the week, but I take everything from the digital calendar and I kind of decode it into my paper planner, and it just helps my brain figure out what I have to do in this form of tasks and to-dos for that week. So I pop everything on here, I put family members across here, and then I just do a general overview of what each of them has going on that week. From there I can meal plan, and I get all this done on the weekend so that I'm set for the week. And doing this planning task has formed part of my routine. I've made it part of my routine. I do it every weekend, and it is a gift to future me. Future me later in the week that is finding the week easier because this has been done is so grateful to weekend me for having done this. Then I've got my priorities. This is an Eisenhower matrix, and this is how I decode my tasks for the week, whether they are important and urgent, urgent but not important, important but not urgent, or not important and not urgent. And quite frankly, I'm not going to end up doing those things this week. The things in this box I've got to do quite quickly. And then I prioritize my goals for my big tasks I've got to get done for each day of the week. And that gets broken down into my half-hour slots for the day and exactly what I'm going to get done during each of those slots. So everything goes on to here, from getting up, sorting my skincare, doing my workouts, getting everyone dressed, getting everyone to have their breakfast, getting everyone to school. All those things go onto here. My to-do list for the day, what I'm making for dinner that night. And then over here, the things I'm grateful for. It really does help me to kind of stay positive and focused if I can write out 10 things that I'm either grateful for, or I've achieved, or I'm pleased about, or I'm glad that happened. Just 10 positive things, 10 little pats on the back for me. It could be 10 things I got done from my to-do list, but it really helps me to just kind of stay focused and realize that although I may not have achieved the things I wanted to achieve, not absolutely everything's going to get done because, you know, sometimes life happens. I've still managed to achieve a lot. And I've got this notes section. This is for my brain dumping, my side quests for all the things that pop into my head when I'm actually doing other things. So ultimately, on the weekend, I decode my digital planner into my paper planner. You don't have to use this exact planner if you want this exact planner in either digital to print out at home or fill in a tablet or a printed copy. All the details are on screen and down in the description. But making both the digital and the paper planners part of my routine has been such a game changer. To say it's changed my life, it really has helped me organize my very scatty and cluttered brain, if I'm honest. It really has. So carving some time out in your routine, in your week, just to set aside, just could be 10 minutes initially, 10 minutes, half an hour, will save you so much time in the long run to really get your head round, right, what it needs to happen this week. What are the extra things on top of our routine that need to be slotted around our routine? And making planning for those things part of your routine will make your life so much easier, I promise you. And then from there, I copy the meal plan and the basic overview of what's going on during the week onto my kitchen organisation station. I have got all of the organisation station printables free for you to grab and links to the frames and everything. So you can use the details on screen or the link down in the description. Just head to mummyof4.com/organisation station to grab all your free printables for that. So those are the 3 places I'm planning. Okay, those are the 3 places I plan. Now we're going to talk about how we design the routine that is actually already in my digital calendar, because on top of those things that cannot be moved, on top of those school pick up and drop off times and dentist appointments and swimming lessons and all those things on the calendar, I've also got some really basic things on that calendar that I think a lot of people don't include on their calendars, but I do, and I'm going to explain why I think you should too. So by having things on the calendar that you're like, well, of course, like I know we've got to have breakfast, I don't need to put that on my calendar. Well, I would argue that by having things like this on the calendar, by allocating the amount of time that we need for the thing, like breakfast, getting dressed, all that kind of stuff, it means that we're not rushing. It means we're not lying to ourselves about how much time we actually have. It means we can also add in things like buffer times for when, life happens and things go wrong. And I can't tell you how many times, including this morning, actually, I've been super grateful for the buffer time that I have built into our morning routines. But honestly, putting everything on your calendar as if it's a genuine appointment that you have to physically be there for, and I'm talking everything, I'm going to go through the things with you now, it will be an absolute game changer. So we're going to put some things on our calendar, and I think the easiest way to start building this routine is by working it backwards. And I'm going to pick as a starting point the time that your children start school. Now, you could tweak this for whatever works for your life. It could be the time that you have to check in at the office. It could be a time that you have to attend an exercise class. It could be whatever. But for the case of this example, we're going to pick the time that the children need to be in school. Okay, so the time the children have to be in school, we'll call it 9 a.m. We'll call it 9 a.m. that this fictitious child has to be in school. So what time does the child have to be in school? 9 a.m. Okay, so how long does it take to get to the school? Do you always walk? Do you always drive? Do you have to allow for traffic? What about parking? Do you have to allow a buffer for parking? So we used to live a little bit further away, and I had to drive to school, and I always had to leave enough time to buffer in for parking. I could never find a parking space to allow for traffic. The road we had to drive on was quite congested. So I had to leave enough time, and I was always at school early, because if I wasn't early, I was late. There was no way of actually arriving at the perfect time because it just didn't work like that. So if you've got those considerations, you need to buffer in the maximum amount of time it could take you to get to school. If it's something like walking to school, then obviously, unless you walk incredibly slowly one day for some reason or sprint another day, your walk to school is going to take a pretty similar amount of time. So hopefully during that first stage where we observed how long everything took, you observed how long it took to walk to school. And if you've not done that yet, please do time your walk to school and just know roughly how long it takes you. So then working it back from there, how long does it take to walk to school? We pop that on the calendar, the walk to school. Then I would personally, if you've got children that are anything like mine, allow a nice large window of perhaps 10 to 15 minutes for leaving the house. Even with a school bag station at the front door, even with everything arranged the night before, there always seems to be a little bit of buffer time required for leaving the house, for still finding things that may have gone astray, may have been moved since you put them there, whatever it may be. Anyway, figure out how much buffer time you think you need, but I definitely recommend allowing a bit of buffer time for leaving the house. Pop this on your calendar. And you know what? The other thing that really helps me is I set alarms. So alarms go off various times during the day. I've got alarms that go off to remind me to go and fetch my children. It's not like I would forget to fetch my children. I know I've got children, I know I need to pick them up. This may slightly be an ADHD thing, but I do worry that I'll either be so hyper-focused on what I'm doing, because part of ADHD is finding it very difficult to focus on some things, but being very hyper-focused on other things. And when I'm very hyper-focused on work, then the rest of the world can sometimes fall away. But I do worry that when I'm very hyper-focused on something, I may forget to look at the time, or I'll be so worried about forgetting to look at the clock that I will hyper-focus on the clock and not get much work done. So I find that for me, setting alarms is like freedom, because it's like I don't have to remember what time it is. The alarm will remind me. I find this works for the children as well. So it helps that I'm not clock watching in the mornings. But also it's like the alarm is nagging, I'm not nagging. I pick upbeat songs that I know they like to go off at various times during the day. And they know that that song means it's time to put your shoes on. That song means it's time to start breakfast. That song means it's time to get up, whatever it might be. Your kids will like learn these routines with you. And will you still have to nag them a little bit? I mean, probably. But ultimately, the alarm's doing some of the nagging, does take a little bit of the pressure off. So we have an alarm for, right, it's time to stop doing whatever you're doing and you can go and get shoes and coats on. Working it back from there, I would also leave a little bit of buffer time here. I actually have about a 20-minute buffer time between end of breakfast and shoes on, just for when life has happened. If we've had to deal with meltdowns or whatever, the rest of the morning is running over. I know I've still got that buffer time, even if everything else has kind of gone a bit squiffy. Then working it backwards from there, what time do you need to finish eating breakfast? Obviously, this is assuming that this is the order of your routine, just because this is the order we do things. It's not the order you have to do things, but just to give you kind of a framework or an example. So what time do you have to finish eating breakfast? How long do you plan to sit and eat breakfast? Now, we do actually all sit and have breakfast together as a family. I find it's a really nice way to get to talk to the children about what they're excited for the day, what they're worried about for the day, and just have a generally good old chat and a catch up. It is really nice. I appreciate that not everyone is going to be able to do that, but if you can work that into your morning, I would recommend it. And then from there, what time do you need to start breakfast? Can you see how we're working this back? What time do you need everyone to start getting dressed? How long does it take for you to do hair, makeup if you've got to get yourself ready, picking out outfits? You could move choosing clothes for the night before or even plan them on the weekend. You could move that to part of your weekend routine or your evening routine if you want to choose things day by day to take a bit of pressure off the morning routine. And then working it back from there, what time does everyone need to get up in order to achieve all of this? And then for me, actually, if you've seen my morning routine videos, then you'll know that I like to do some journaling and some exercise before the children even get up, because otherwise, quite frankly, I don't end up making time for it during my day. Working it backwards even further, then how much sleep do you actually need? Again, this is something that you need to observe for yourself, because it's not something you can Google and say, a woman of this exact age needs this amount of sleep, because it is quite personal to you. But if you do have something like an Apple Watch, then there will be data inside your phone. You can look at how much sleep you've had on certain times, how you felt. And this is definitely worth observing. If you can look at the data on your Apple Watch, or there are other apps that can track how much sleep you may have had, you can just see, right, well, I had this much sleep. Yeah, I felt great. I had this much sleep. Do you know what? I needed more. Or even I had this much sleep and do you know what? I woke up feeling groggy. I didn't need that much. So if you can figure out how much sleep you need, you then can work it backwards to what time do you actually need to fall asleep, and then working it backwards further from there, what time do you need to start winding down for bed, and then working it backwards to what time you actually need to start your evening routine. So as you can see, this may all sound very overwhelming. I apologize if I am bombarding you. You don't have to do all this at once, but I just kind of want to give you the overview of how I work our routine, because honestly, when you can build in these building blocks and work backwards, figuring out how much time you need for everything, I promise you it is so freeing, because you end up avoiding that, oh, I'm running out of time feeling, which for me at least feels pretty horrible. So as we're designing our new routine, we want to be blocking out a certain number of things wherever possible. You want to think about if you want to fit in exercise into your week, what kind of exercise makes you happy, what kind of exercise you're actually likely to be able to stick to, and it needs to go on your calendar. It needs to be as important as an actual appointment. Like, you wouldn't just not show up to the dentist. You'd probably have a dentist reception phoning up and shouting at you. And I don't know about you, but our dentist reception is pretty scary. She's quite abrupt. I wouldn't mess with her. But yet, if we don't make these appointments with ourselves for the things that we have to do for our basic self-care, like exercise or getting your hair cut or fitting in enough sleep, if we don't block in these things and treat them like appointments that we have to be at, then they don't end up getting done. And then our mum batteries end up depleted, and then we're generally just not as good at being caretakers for our family or doing our jobs or whatever it may be. So it's really important to remember self-care is not selfish. And I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you, because this is an ongoing lesson for me. But if you think of yourself like a car, if you never service your car, if you never fill it up with the right fuel, if you ignore all the warning lights and then it breaks down, are you going to be surprised, really? So incorporating these elements into your routine, like exercise, like booking your next haircut appointment as you're coming out of the first one, and making sure that these things are on your calendar so they actually get done because they're important too. Ultimately, not doing these things will mean that our bodies, which are the cars in this analogy, are just not going to run as well. So if you cannot get your head around self-care for doing it for yourself, which by the way is a perfectly legitimate reason, then try and get your head around booking in these self-care things and incorporating them into your routine, because it will make you a better wife, mother, worker, employee, friend, whatever it may be. If you can't do it for yourself, at least do it for other people in your life and get those things booked into your routine. So block out that exercise time, block out that rest time, block out that reading time, block out things that are going to fill you up as well as things you actually have to do. And then there are going to be recurring tasks that we have to do. And if you're a mum with lots of children like me, laundry's going to be one of them. I am borderline fanatical about making sure I get on at least one load of laundry every day. And the reason for this is because I know how it feels to be utterly overwhelmed and feeling like I'm never going to catch up with this stuff. You know, that feeling where you've been away for a week and you haven't done any laundry and there is like a mountain of it to get through and you'll wonder how you'll ever get through it. Well, before I put routines in place, that's how I used to feel every day, to be honest. Just overwhelmed by everything in my life and just not quite sure how I was going to get through it all. So for those problem areas, and for me, staying on top of laundry, getting it washed, getting it dried, getting it sorted and put away was definitely a pain point, which is why I worked on and tweaked a laundry routine. I have got a full laundry routine video that I will link below if you want to watch all of that. But ultimately, I'm using laundry as an example here. But there'll be certain tasks that you need to do daily, that you need to do weekly, and that you need to do monthly in order to just stay on top of things in your life. So household admin, life admin, dealing with mail, dealing with other school paperwork, dealing with laundry. Make a list of these things and figure out which things you just got to do every day. So certain things, for example, I've got to do every day would be making sure the kitchen's clean. Whenever anyone eats anything, the kitchen has to be cleaned and wiped out. After we prepare food, we clean and wipe down the kitchen. After we have a meal, then everyone helps to clean up in the dining room. And these things are just part of our routine. They're part of the children's routine. We all clear the table together, it gets sprayed and wiped and tidied up. Because if we didn't do this every time, it would deteriorate so quickly. If we didn't clear up as we went along with cooking, then suddenly the kitchen would be a place I just wouldn't want to be in at all, and it would feel so overwhelming. So chipping away at these things, staying on top of doing a little bit of laundry every day, ultimately just makes it easier to manage, because doing things little and often like that feels manageable, much more so than when everything's a mess and I've got so much laundry to get through. I couldn't physically wash it all in one day just because there were not enough hours in the day. And incorporating these little tasks into my daily and weekly routines has genuinely been life-changing. An important thing to remember, on top of you do not have to do all of this straight away, and this is something that can be built and added to, is also you do not have to do all of this yourself. Your partner, your children can all be part of this routine. If you've got extended family members that are willing to help you, accept that help. That can look like a grandparent agreeing to do pick up from a swimming lesson. It can look like parents deciding who's going to make dinner which night. It can look like involving your children cleaning and tidying up after themselves and being enabled to do things like sorting and putting away their own laundry. I think as mums we can be so hard on ourselves, and I think society and social media and everything, it's a lot of pressure, and it can feel very much like we've got to work like we don't have children and parent like we don't have jobs, and it can feel a lot. And I think the messaging that we were given, definitely the messaging I was given, was if I wasn't doing it all myself and I wasn't doing it perfectly, then I wasn't being a good mum. And that really did stop me from delegating anything at all for very many years. But feeling like that can ultimately lead to massive burnout. So please take it from me, who again is still learning this lesson. So I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to you. But do not be afraid to delegate things. It does not make you a bad mother. It just makes you human. And then as you are implementing this routine, it is really important to set boundaries. If you work from home like I do, this can be really difficult. And it can look like putting your phone on Do Not Disturb and not taking calls while you're working, for example. This can be really challenging because if I was working in an office, I could just say, oh, sorry, I can't talk, my boss is here, and everyone would understand. Whereas people ring me and I'm at home, then I worry they think I'm being rude if I'm not answering the phone because I'm working. But that is a boundary I've had to set, that during working hours, I have to work to get as much done while I'm working so that I can actually have the free time and the bandwidth to be with my family and have that rest time and have that downtime while I'm really at home with my family. Ultimately, multitasking is a bit of a myth. If you think back to when you were in school, you weren't trying to do geography while you're in a maths lesson. While you're in a maths lesson, you're just doing maths. And then while you're in a geography lesson, you're just doing geography. So if during your routine, while you're working, you're just working, and while you're resting, you're really just relaxing, you're going to get much more work done while you're working, and you should be able to enjoy some much more relaxing downtime, knowing you've got all the other things done during those allocated blocks during your routine. The main thing with routine is it is not something that is set in stone. It's something I've built on over the years, and it's something that just requires every now and again taking a look at what you're doing, assessing where things are going wrong, tweaking and adjusting. Even if your routine is working absolutely beautifully, you're going to get to a stage where things need tweaking and adjusting when life changes, when your children get older, their needs change, their swimming lessons move, whatever it might be. So do not expect to do it all at once, and realize that tweaking and adjusting is part of the process. I promise you, as you start to build your own bespoke routine, your life is going to get so much easier. You just need to observe what's going on in your life now, pick the areas that are bugging you the most and causing you the most grief and stress, and implement routine elements to support those areas. If you want to take a look at what my morning routines have looked like over the years, I've got a playlist of morning routines on screen now. And if you want to look at some evening routine ideas, then there's also a playlist of evening routines. Check out my Patreon for some early release and behind the scenes content. Check out my planner store, which is linked down below. And I shall see you in the next video. Bye.